Thanks to those joining me live and to those that'll be joining me, G-Funk and Dave from Living in the Ring, AK-97 Rough. What's going on, everybody tuning in live? We have a great show for you tonight. We're going to be talking about Johnny Tapia. I mean, Vida Loca, his life, his legacy, etc. Later on the show, also the Nevada Boxing Hall of Fame ceremony has been postponed for a year. Nacho Bernstein, as most know him as a trainer of Juan Manuel Marquez, legendary trainer, has a lot to say about Morales and about Canelo Alvarez, the favorite dude of a lot of dudes out there. So a lot we got to talk about. Also, Danny Garcia, is he going to fight Spence? Is he going to fight Pacquiao? I don't know, but how about we find out? All right, what's going on, gentlemen? How's it going, G-Funky?
It's going well, man. Just, keeping myself busy during this quarantine, taking care of my kid while the wife is working. So, busy, right, man. But I'm excited to be back, talk some boxing, man.
Absolutely. What's going on, Dave? AK-97 Rough, how's it going?
AKA the greatest Chicano of all times. I'm doing good, bro. I'm doing good, man. I'm enjoying the weather, especially. I know, G-Funk, you're in my neck of the woods, so this weather is beautiful, bro. This is like barbecue, right? It's like barbecue, pop open a few beers type of weather. I had to work, I had to go to work. I've been working all day, man, but, I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to, for us to get ready to talk some boxing.
Absolutely. The GOAT, La Cabra, bro. He's La Cabra más chingona de todas. He's right here. All right. Just check it out, man. A lot to talk about. Make sure you guys throw a jab at the damn like button. Make sure it turns blue if you're listening in archive. All right. Utilize the jab to the like button and then throw a cross at the subscribe and the nice uppercut at the bell button. That way you're notified every single time D-Style Boxing comes on live. Check this out. All right. The Nevada, not to be confused with the one over there in New York, but the Nevada Boxing Hall of Fame has postponed their ceremony to 2021, a whole year, right? Dave, good move. What's your opinion about that?
I think it's a good move. I mean, look, we, as a society right now, we're finding new things out. We're still at first base with this COVID-19. We don't know everything. Every day we're finding out new stuff. We're inching closer to, hopefully. I mean, I shouldn't say we're inching because I don't know yet of how close we are of handling what's going on with our country at this moment, right? Of what's going on with the COVID-19. So I think it's a great idea. I think that by jumping the gun and trying to test and using live bodies to do testing of whether or not it's the real deal or people can get sick or has this blown over. I think a year, drawn out is a much better way of fight, because you got to remember this. A lot of the people that are going to show up for this are a lot older, that are going to be remembering fighters in this Hall of Fame thing, a lot older. This is going to be an older generation of folks being there. So I think it's a good idea.
Absolutely. Just to go over some of the inductees: Fernando El Ferros Vargas, Clarence Bones Adams, Andre Ward, James Lights Out Tony, Miguel Cotto, Mark Tooth Sharp Johnson, Julian the Hawk Johnson, Azuma the Professor Nelson, Danny Literate Lopez, and Jose Luis Castillo. I mean, there go a hell of a class. And non-boxing inductees: Carlos Padilla, Loreno Fertitta, Sammy Macias, and Jose Suleiman. Right, G-Funky, what's your opinion about this, man? Then postpone it till next year.
Yeah, I think it's a good move, man, because this thing, man, it doesn't seem like it's going away anytime soon. So it's best to just kind of take these things and just say, let's just wait a little bit, and then these guys will have their time. They're already in. It's just the enshrinement, which is a big deal to some of these guys. That's what they look forward to. But it's to me, it's cool, man. Just we'll wait it out and let these guys get the acknowledgement that they deserve, man. That's a hell of a class too, man. So
awesome,
I'll be looking forward to that, man. But I think it's the right move, man. Let's just play it safe for now, and then once everything's good, hopefully we get there one day, and we'll be able to see these guys get inducted into the Boxing Hall of Fame.
I agree. We want to give these guys praise, not COVID. Like, you know what I mean? So stay at home for now
Right.
and come back later. You know what I mean? And we'll celebrate you guys. And I think it's a better move than doing something like that. Watch you come on StreamYard and give these guys praise or something like that. You know what I mean? Do it in
Right.
person where it counts. Make sure you guys throw a jab at the like button. What's up, Big Dog Willie, Chicano Prophet, and Bruce goes in the chat. What's going on? Let's talk about Nacho, bro. And I'm not talking about Nacho Libre. I'm talking about the talking about Hall of Famer. This guy is a Hall of Fame trainer.
He is, man.
And Nacho Bernstein was on El Box Cast. It's they have like a podcast. It is in Spanish. They put the links in the description box. Some people taking their quotes and they're giving them no credit. They're a very small YouTube channel, but give them the credit. You know what I mean? Go to their videos, give them a thumbs up and stuff like that. And listen to them when you speak Spanish. All right.
Dude, they were able to get him up. They were able to wake him up and get him to do that. Huh?
Dude was on there for a whole hour, bro.
I remember the last time we had him on Leaving the Ring, his wife literally yelled at us on the air that he was asleep to call back, even though it was Nacho that told us to call him at a particular time. He said, "Oh yeah, I'll be up," and then called him. He was asleep still. Took like an hour for his wife to say, "No, to us, call back in an hour." He's sleeping.
Wow. Man, you're waking up a Hall of Famer, bro. Let him get his rest, bro.
Hey, I didn't argue with her at all, especially because she sounded like my mom. You know, she was mad. She was like, "Who gave you this number?" Nacho did.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
man, that's interesting. But El Box Cast, go ahead and check them out. The first thing he talked about, they asked him a question about something that Morales allegedly said. I was not able to find these quotes, but this is what they asked him. That Morales said that his legacy is not defined by one punch like Juan Manuel Marquez. His legacy is defined by his body of work, and he beat Pacquiao in better fashion because he outboxed him for 12 rounds. He didn't get lucky with a punch, pretty much. You know what I mean? So Nacho did respond to that, and but before we get to that, also he went on to talk about how Morales was supposed to fight him, how the Jose Suleiman told him and Marquez in person that they would be getting a title shot against Marquez. And then mysteriously, they later found out he was going to fight Paulie Ayala instead. And, he went on to talk about some other things, bro. Like they always move the rankings on him in the WBC. Marquez would be number 1. And all of a sudden, Nassim Hamed was number 1. And then he was back to number 3. And then he broke with the WBC. I mean, he was kind of all over the place.
All of the money. That's
right.
all you got to do.
Right. But he definitely, he said, hey, at the end of the day, we had a lot of fights with more than one fight with Pacquiao. And that Marquez, of course, he said he's not defined by one punch. He had a better legacy than that. Dave, what is your overall thoughts on that? Just on if it's true that Morales said that his legacy is defined by one punch, by knocking out, Pacquiao.
I mean, look, I don't know if it's defined by one punch. I mean, Marquez, you got to admit, Marquez was by far one of the greatest technicians, to come out of south of the border. I mean, here's a guy that really had to work at the grind of getting the exposure that he has now, the recognition, right? The recognition that we see of him now, But that one punch, dude, yeah, I mean, you're going to remember him as the last guy to knock out Manny Pacquiao, to put him flat on his face. And it was so dramatizing in the fashion that he did it, But I look, these guys are great fighters. I think in their right, they have the right to say that this guy only did this. Whereas the public, I don't think we have the right to say that because, they're able to justify how they define their career by the credentials that they present. That's my opinion. I think Morales in all reality, he's always been a shit talker. I mean, there's no mystery to that. This guy's always been a shit talker and stuff, He didn't like Barrera, and I think when he doesn't like, there's like a it's not a hidden thing among Mexicanos. I can't say we hide jealousy among each other. I think that's always been true. I remember like my grandfather used to tell me back in the days, like if Mexicanos united, we just like finally would stop like this underlying of hate of each other. We would move and be a lot stronger than what we are. And you could just see it in the sports. You could see the jealousy and the hate that like Morales and Barrera, Marquez, they all had for each other, man.
Absolutely. What's up, Just K? And Bruce Gold says his brother Raul was no chump either. Big Dog Willis says that kill was vindication of getting robbed in the second fight against Pacquiao. You could argue the third fight, I think, was the most egregious, but hey, it's all debatable. And shout out to you, Just K. Chief Funky, do you agree with Morales that his win, the first one, his only win actually, but the first fight with Pacquiao was a better way to beat Pacquiao than the way Marquez did by knockout?
That's tough, man. Obviously, you want to go in there and get the knockout in spectacular fashion like Marquez did, and that was spectacular. Let me just throw that out there, Yeah. I got the Ring magazine for that somewhere where he was the fighter of the year, and they got him with the fist raised and the blood coming out of his nose. That was a great moment in boxing. But I don't know, man. I mean, they both beat him pretty good, man. But the thing is this, like, if Morales is going to say that, then he's going to have to at least acknowledge the second and the third fight.
Right.
He's going to have to at least give Marquez that. I mean, I know he didn't get the official win, but it's like, come on, man. We all know. I mean, for me, I thought those were two clear wins. I think the first fight is the most debatable one that could go back and forth. You're going to get more people saying that Pacquiao won that fight because of the 3 knockdowns. But the second and the third fight, to me, those are clear wins for Marquez. And then obviously when he face palmed him or face planted him in the fourth one. But it's tough, man, because Morales did do a hell of a job on Pacquiao that night. Paint brushed him all night with right hands. And then turned southpaw with the guy in the 12th round, which was that was pretty crazy. But that's how much confidence the guy had in there that night. He's like, fuck, I'm going to go southpaw on this dude the last round. I know I got this fight won.
He went suicidal with that 12th round. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I give it to Morales, bro. Like, okay, if you really think about it, his first win with Pacquiao was very dominant. You know what I mean? He dominated those rounds. He had his way with Manny. That's why in the 12th round, he basically came out. It was his way of him showing you ain't shit, Manny Pacquiao. Look where we're at. I outboxed you. I outjabbed you. You haven't been able to hurt me. I've hurt you numerous times within the rounds. Whereas I think, but see, for me, it goes back to Marquez is that, yeah, Marquez it was a tug of war in that first fight. But then after that, everything was like, okay, this is Marquez. He's just not getting the win on paper. But I think every fan was like, this was Marquez. Like, Marquez won this. Whereas Eric, that was it. You had one really good dominant win, but nobody remember. Like, if you really talk to other fans, they're going to remember the trilogy of Eric Morales and Pacquiao of the last two, not the first one. Whereas Marquez, everybody remembers every fight and everybody can debate every fight. Well, Morales got one good win and that's it.
In my opinion, he was on his way to winning that second fight too. If he didn't, I mean, he was done at that weight class. But to me, those first 7 rounds were clear. He was clearly winning that fight. Morales
when they started massaging his thighs and stuff in the corner.
Yeah,
yeah. But man, like here's what I would say, and I'm an Eric Morales guy. But if I was Marquez, this is all I would say. Look, man, you won one battle against Manny, but you lost the war. Yeah. I won the war. You know what I mean? I won the war against the guy. And because that's at the end of the day, that's what it is. You know what I mean? I want to ask you this, Dave. So Nacho has, and it's kind of, we're going to extend this, on the next topic, but he's always had this resentment towards the WBC, him and Marquez. Okay. And here's one example. He just gave the example of all they did was ask him, like, do you think, should have fought, Marquez? Because according to Morales, his revisionist history was, well, Marquez was nowhere to be found when I was fighting like Barrera and, Ayala and all these guys. Marquez wasn't relevant. I don't know if that's necessarily true. Marquez was definitely ranked and he was up there. And according to Nacho, he was ranked number 1. They were at the
Right.
house of Suleiman. They were told you're going to get the title shot, and then they don't find out from Suleiman, but the newspaper, that he's going to be fighting Paulie Ayala. Okay, who's no scrub. Okay, southpaw out of Texas. Right.
Right.
But what do you make of that? You know, this. Do you think they have a right to be resentful towards the WBC? And why did the WBC seem to not treat them so well?
Why? I mean, the WBC has always been a set of whores, to tell you the truth, when it comes to money. You know, they're going to suck off whoever's going to pay up first and pay the most. Marquez wasn't a star. You got to remember that. I mean, Morales, Barrera, Hamed, those guys were stars. Those guys put asses in the seat. Marquez was still looked at as a counterpuncher, not a very traditional Mexican-style boxer. You know, I thought he was in thrilling fights, but for the masses or HBO and the networks, he wasn't appealing. So since he wasn't appealing, he was not appealing to the WBC, which, you know, the acronym for WBC is We Be Crooks. Everybody knows that. I mean, even Suleiman, I've had Jose Suleiman ask him on his own. We've asked him on his own rules. The guy couldn't remember his own rules that he would set. That tells you how much they're dedicated and following rules.
Was that when he called you a racist?
Yeah, that's when he called me a racist towards Mexicans when I'm Mexican.
Just because you were questioning his rules, right?
I was questioning the rules. I asked them, you know, how did they come up with that? But at the time, my co-host gave them a toy too. We're asking them. I mean, we're reading their rules. I mean, and we even asked them, because we asked him, did you write these rules? And he said, absolutely, I wrote them all. You know, blah blah blah. You know that I know these rules. Then you asked him, and he was like, "Why don't you know? I mean, come on, you guys are asking me this, and I can't just think off the top of my head." And then that's when, because we were questioning about the Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. You know, getting titles after titles when the kid hadn't done shit, and he would pick any weight that he would want to fight. And so, I mean, we all know that, like I said, the WBC is a very corrupted organization. It's not, I mean, look at them now, right now. They have a clean sport thing, but yet they don't do 365 days. They literally, do maybe 1 or 2 out of 165 days. That's not all year round testing.
No, it's not.
You know what I mean? If you do 2 times out of that amount, 12 months of a span of time, that's not clean testing. Okay, and then remember too, they got caught for saying they were using VADA on. I would have to go back to on the fight, and then it turned out to be that the promoter and the fighters themselves said, like, we're not using VADA, we're not even using the WBC clean program. So for anybody to believe them on their end about certain things of history wise to revise it, I wouldn't believe them. They've have ruined their whole credibility. I still don't understand why they even exist. And why? I mean, I do, because fighters love belts mounted on their walls. But that's the only reason why they're around.
Absolutely. Nopal Boxiano, salute HCP fam. All right, shout out to Big Dog Willie. He said he meant the third fight. Drew Titan on here. Bruce goes. How's it going? Chicano Prophet says, didn't Morales say he watched the first Pac Marquez 10 times in the lead up to the Pacquiao fight? He obviously learned from the Marquez fight. Oops. If he said that, that's a big oops. Taco says, Que onda raza? How's it going, bro? Bruce goes, I thought Pac had the first fight, but Marquez came back like Superman. He did come back from that big deficit, 10-6, although one of the judges scored a 10-7, but that's a different story. All right, WBC so money driven, says Big Dog Willie, which sanctioning body isn't. Big Dog Willie, I lost respect for WBC with the franchise belt BS. Now back to Morales. Chief Funky, segue us to this, okay, because obviously, Bernstein just, brought up the WBC, how they would move Marquez from his ranking and, just miraculously and stuff like that. They promised him a title shot and, oh, you're the mandatory, you have my word, and it doesn't happen, et cetera, right? And we go back to when Saul Canelo Alvarez got his title shot. He was not ranked. He fought an unranked opponent from a different weight class. We know the story there. Okay. And again, Marquez and Bernstein here, they went very hard in the WBC at the time. And is it tied to this? Because he said Canelo is not number 1 pound for pound, and he never will be. Like, he just shut it down. He will never be pound for pound, no matter what he does. And he said he's good, but he's not great. And I cannot consider him one of the best fighters in Mexican boxing history. Is that history and the beef that kind of extended from there? And if you remember, Marcus was challenging, Canelo was challenging Marcus to a fight. You remember all that drama? And the fact, they were calling out Canelo for that. Canelo didn't like it. Do you think these statements is connected to that?
I do think so, man. I think there is still some animosity there with all that history you just brought up. WBC, like Dave said, they got a history, man, of doing stuff like this. Marquez was always that dude that was left out of the circle. He was always left out of the big fights. He was ready to fight the guys like Morales, the Barreras, the Hameds, the guys who were ruling that division at that time. He's going all the way over to, I think it was Indonesia, to fight guys like Chris John.
Yep.
Because he just, he wasn't getting fights. But once he got his opportunity, it didn't look so good against Pacquiao, going down three times in the first round. But then he gets up, makes a hell of a fight out of it, gets a draw out of it. But he has to wait several years in between each fight. I wonder why that is. And once he got his hands on one of those main guys from his country, which is Barrera, he did beat him. So I wonder how he would have done against Morales. That's always a good fight. But to get back on the Canelo thing, man, those are some tough words, man, from Nacho Berenstein to say, he doesn't think he'll ever be considered. I mean, Canelo's still got some time. I've had my issues with the way that they've ran that guy's career, especially early on. He got away with a lot of BS. And we know that was, of course, the WBC looking to get paid because they saw how big of a star this guy was in Mexico. But I do think that is some animosity left over from the whole situation of when Marquez originally said that, he originally had his criticisms of Canelo. I fully understand it. When I first started making videos here on YouTube, I had my criticism of Canelo, and I got viciously attacked by his rabid fans, his rabid fan base. So I understand, and then it's just crazy, man. But I do think
you got attacked by his Chucky fans.
Oh man,
fans, really?
Yeah. And I've done some videos where I've been petty, about things with him, but hey, I got to fire back,
So let me kind of say this, man. Okay.
Go ahead.
Dave, do you think that this is something personal, or is there some type of jealousy there? Because
they were jealousy. Look, you got Juan Marquez who had to do it the hard way.
Right.
It's no secret, dude. Canelo was on 2 channels in Mexico. That's all they, really, that's the 2 channels out there. He was on there. He built a fan base originally where he's from, which that's the way you're supposed to do it. Golden Boy picks him up after X amount of fights. They put him on a platform. They groomed him, which really, I think that's what a lot of fight fans, like I was having problems with both of them with that. They were getting guys, with Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. and Canelo. I remember I did a segment on the show and I put it on YouTube. I was like, is this where we're at as Mexican fighters now? Like, is this what we're going to get? These two type of fighters where they're going to cherry pick and they're going to, make guys jump up and they become the cash weight kings of the era. I was so disappointed. Now, going back with Juan Marquez is that, listen, you had a guy, just like what G-Funk said right now, had to go to Indonesia, had to fight, for lesser money, had to do he had to jump all the hoops to prove that he was one of the best. So is there a chip on his shoulder and with his trainer, Nacho? Absolutely. Why not? Nacho is an all-time Hall of Famer. How many champions did he have under his belt that they didn't even give him the courtesy? That's a slap in a legend's face by basically telling them, you know what? I know you've developed all these fighters and they're all Hall of Famers. They've done all that. You know what I mean? You've been not even in the trench. You got mud in your hair, mud in your nails, all that shit, but it's still not good enough for us to believe that you have possibly another great Mexican champion, Latino champion. You're going to have to get back in the back of the line. If that doesn't add to animosity, I don't know what does. You know what I mean? Because I'd be pretty pissed off that I got a guy and this guy is blowing everybody out and he's, got all these skills. And you're telling me that he's got to wait, but this other kid comes around with red hair and he's a güerito. He gets all the publicity off the bat. That's a problem.
Well, and then to make matters worse, Dave. So I remember there was a telecast, and it was in Spanish, okay? And I actually have the translation video on my channel. You guys can see it on my playlist, where Marquez is on a show right where Canelo's in as well. So is Nacho. And Canelo, and this guy's saying, what do you mean he's going to not only fight for the title, but he's not going to fight the number 1, the number 2, the number 3, the number 4. He's going to fight Matthew Haddon, a dude that's not even in his weight class, bro. You know what I mean? And so when I heard Marquez speaking about the number 1, the number 2, the number 3, I could just hear it in his voice, the frustration and him picturing himself and remembering himself in that position, watching other guys that he already ranked ahead of get the number 1 spot without even beating him, And then to make that crazy, challenge him to a fight, bro.
Yeah, that was crazy, man. I mean, I think back on that time. And I was like, this is like, Matthew Haddon and then Josecito Lopez. You remember that? And I was just like, dude, are you serious? Like, this is what, I mean, really? I mean, okay, you're not even hiding the obvious anymore. You're just like throwing it right in our face. You're taunting us right in our face. And I remember nobody in the media was really asking him this. Like, nobody was asking him, what is the definition of a champion? So I get him finally, okay? And I remember I had to do like one interview and I had to make sure, okay? Because the trick of sometimes of doing interviews with the PRs to like butter them up is like, I'm going to give them a lot of softball questions. And then when they feel confident with me, then I'm going to get them. Then that's when I pull them in. So I remember I did the softball questions with the first interview and I said, and I promised them, I made them promise, you're going to give me the next interview, right? Oh, yeah. Boom, we get it. And I was like, okay, gloves are off. I'm going to ask him what I've been wanting to ask him. I get him on and I'm like, what is the definition of a champion? And he said, defending it against the best, blah, blah. So I go, then why are you like, so how do you like, just, I can't remember word for what I said. You have to go back and listen to the interview. But I was like, what I was trying to get around was like, how do you then defend making guys jump up that don't even belong in that division and you're beating them? Like, how do you do that? And he hung up on me. So it wasn't like he didn't know what they were doing for him. He knew what they were doing for him. And that's where I didn't have respect for him yet. Like, I didn't appreciate what he was doing because I was used to watching, boxing from my heroes that were fighting from the bottom to the top. And Juan Marquez was one of those guys that fought from the bottom to the top.
And now he's here. But look, man, at the end of the day, man, with all that said, at what point, though, is Nacho going to, like, I get that the past is the past, right? At what point is he going to give G-Funky, at what point is he going to give Canelo some credit? It just appears like he just ruled him out for life. Like, he ain't pound for pound. He ain't never going to be pound for pound. I don't care what he does. And he's never going to be an all-time great in Mexico. He just ruled them out. Before you answer, though, this is the May 20th edition of Hispanics Causing Panic. Make sure to throw a jab at the like button. Get me over 20 likes right now. All right? And check out my show yesterday, Punch There's Chance. All right, that I did. Make sure you guys check that out as well. Hey, shout out to Drew Titan, who was speaking Spanish through anytime. Pacquiao fought a Mexican. All right, every single time. All right. No, Paul, how's it going? I don't know how Juan Manuel Marquez would do with the A-side Canelo treatment. I mean, the dude would probably finish his career undefeated or something. Okay, with that type of treatment. Okay. But he definitely earned the hard way, Chicano. Absolutely, he did. Okay. But G-Funky, when is he going to give this guy some credit? Like, I criticize Canelo just as much as everybody. The way he got his first title shot with a catchweight that he didn't even make the catchweight. He got the title shot anyway. Okay, it's a welterweight, right? But at what point, can he leave some room? Like, if he does, can he give us some route? Like, if he fights this guy or that guy? Because he also said that they're carefully matchmaking him, and they're he's strategically avoiding certain middleweights. And he specified middleweights. What things
I
you
mean,
find?
I could agree with that last part, but as far as him saying, this guy will never be pound for pound or anything like that, I wouldn't go that far, even though I've been, again, one of those guys that have criticized Canelo pretty good here, for good reason. But, I won't go as that far to say that. We all know, man, that, there's nothing more stubborn than an old school Mexican, and I think,
Hey, take it easy. Take it easy, man. Oh, you're talking about Nacho.
I think that's gonna be
Oh,
something that
no. Yeah.
that's gonna be something he probably takes to the grave, unfortunately. But I understand the frustration. I mean, we've talked here for several minutes about the way that Marquez had to struggle to become what he was or what he is now in Mexican boxing. And it bothered me too, man. I really understand it. I just didn't get how so many fans are just so quickly just jumped on the bandwagon with Canelo when we had a guy in Marquez who he's already he was already doing his thing, and he's fighting just about everybody there is to fight. So I really do understand Nacho's frustration, but there are some things that Canelo can do. That could possibly change his mind, but unfortunately, I just don't think that's going to happen with him, man. I think, if he's like my grandfather, who was around his age, he's he's pretty stubborn, man, and it seems like it. It seems like he's going to keep it that way.
You
Well, there we
gotta,
go.
you know what? I agree with you, bro. G-From, I agree with you because here's the thing though, too. You got to contribute to Nacho. Nacho has groomed and developed champions, Hall of Famers.
Right.
And seeing, you gotta just think of this: be in his shoes, be at the times where you really had to put your fighters out there to be the best, to fight the best, right? The politics were there, but it wasn't as deep rooted as we're seeing it now, right? So to see that his credentials were not good enough to get the recognition that he felt that it's Juan Marquez deserved, I feel for him. I definitely feel for him. I was reading right now one of let me see really quick. I wanted to bring this up. A-Rod, even the Garcia's dad said if Vargas was taken care of like Canelo, he could have as big as a career.
Oh man,
I disagree, and I'm going to tell you why I disagree with that. Canelo understood that he had his role and his team had another role. He allowed his team to take care of the outside stuff, the outside business. Fernando wanted to do both. Remember, it was Fernando that was calling for certain fights and demanded those certain fights. Main events didn't make the decisions. They set up the fights, but they didn't look out for this kid and tell him, like, it's too early, it's too soon. They wanted to ride that way because it's a small promotional group that was trying to get big, like Top Rank and everybody, Don King at the time. They were trying to do that. So they were trying to ride the wave of an Olympian who they signed on, and they had just lost to with the David Reed thing. So they were trying to ride that wave, and they listened to a 21-year-old kid when they should have listened to their sense of business. That's the difference. Canelo is smart enough to listen to the sense of business of his team. Big difference.
Absolutely. Speaking of A-Rod, did y'all see the show where Canelo and Reynoso have an interview with David Faitelson? I believe it's from ESPN Deportes. He said everyone has done it. He just gets more hate because of being the internet era. Do you think that's true, G-Funk? Do you think it's just because we're in the internet era?
No, I don't think so. Some of these things, I mean, not to say that things like this haven't happened, but I think on this level, man, it's been, especially early in Canelo's career, it's been pretty bad, man. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know how anybody can defend that Matthew Hatton fight. Like, I don't know how anybody can possibly do it. I don't know how anybody could possibly defend this franchise champion thing.
No, there's no defending it. If you're objective, okay, and you just look at it for what it is, you can't really defend it, right? You can maybe explain it, you can maybe understand it, but you can't defend it. There's a difference, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
but you can erase it, which I think he did. I think it erased it. You know what I mean? I mean, look, like I said, I was a big critic of him. Right. But after, let's gotta remember this. Gennady Golovkin was chasing a 154 pounder. Okay. Gennady Golovkin was after, and to this day, still after Canelo Alvarez. Okay. It finally forced Canelo Alvarez to step up. I remember when this was all being talked about and being said, I used to say I didn't want to see that fight because Canelo Alvarez wasn't a natural 160 at the time. I just thought he was like a big frame kid. Wasn't confident that he could do. I thought that Gennady Golovkin was going to knock his head off his shoulders, and it didn't happen. The first fight, I got exactly what I thought was going to happen. You know, if Canelo can withstand the punching power of Gennady Golovkin, and that's what we saw. We saw Gennady Golovkin have his way with Canelo. It was a very tight fight. It wasn't a draw fight that they gave it to. The outcome ended up becoming was a draw. I didn't agree with that. I thought Gennady Golovkin did his part, did his job, and was a clear winner. But him coming back, Canelo coming back and wanting that match. Now, some folks are like, oh, what about the drug test? He cleared all that. You know, I mean, this guy was doing things that nobody would even dare to touch. He decided, hey, I'm going to do 365 days, and he did it. He signed on to it. I'm going to do the hair test, which he did. Nobody wanted to sign on to that. So he's the only guy next to Nonito Dornier, and I forgot the other kid that was a lightweight that did the same thing. God, I can't remember. I can't believe I can't remember the name. But anyways, you know, and then he moved on and he started fighting these tough fights. So I give him the credit where it's due, you know, and it's kind of like it doesn't forget what he did in the past. That's always going to be brought up. But it's where the point we're at now. I'm like, okay, now everything counts. Will Nacho Bernstein forgive him? Probably never. Like G-Funk said, he's going to take it to his grave. But I think Marquez will. I think when everything's done, the dust is finally settled, and it's be going to the Hall of Fame time where Canelo finally retires, you're going to look at the best fights towards the end of his career, not in the beginning of his career.
Yeah. Well, look. In fairness, Juan Manuel Marquez doesn't have him number one pound for pound or anything like that either. Will he in the future? I don't know, right? But that remains to be seen. But I think that beef is there. And G-Funky, anything you wanted to add before we go to the next one?
No, I think I've said my piece. Not trying to start another war here on YouTube between me and the Canelo fans. But I think you made a great point that, you know, when all the dust is settled, we'll be looking more towards what he did towards the end of his career as more than what he did at the beginning. So, you know, we'll see, man. You know, we don't know. We can't look into the future, but you know, he's turned it around a little bit. You know, I give credit where credit's due. You know, he's turned it around a little bit. So, you know, we just gotta wait and see, man.
Let me add this really quick because about the whole pound for pound thing, man. Let me tell you this. I don't believe in pound for pound. I think that's a crock of bullshit nowadays. I got to tell you this. Pound for pound is more popularity. You know, if you look at fans nowadays with this internet,
the way they do it, yeah.
You know what I mean? Everything is like, oh, this guy makes this much. This guy did this much. This guy. That's how people now weigh pound for pound. Pound for pound is skill level. Would this guy be able to compete with everybody on that every weight class? Would he be able to compete with them and beat them in that weight class? That's why that was pound for pound was developed. People have now changed it, just like religion. They all change it what fits them, what makes them feel, you know, good about. I think pound for pound should be thrown out the fucking window. I think it's a ridiculous thing. I don't like a pound for pound list. I think it's stupid to say Canelo is pound for pound. Based on what? What is he? I mean, yes, he's had, you know, Kovala is an argumentable win. People, you know, they're going to say like, well, you know, Kovala wasn't him. I agree with that. I don't think he was. I think he overtrained. But still, he signed on. He fought Canelo. Canelo beat him. The second fight with Gennady Golovkin, I thought he won that fight. He thought he came out there. It could have been a draw too. You know, I thought it was a more convincing draw than it was the first fight. But I also can believe that he did win that fight because he fought Gennady Golovkin style. He made Gennady fight on the back foot, you know. But like I said, I go back again. The pound for pound, throw that shit out the door already. Stop using this stuff unless we're going to use it correctly.
Right, I agree with that. In fact, I mean, I think we should go really old school with it. I mean, I just think that they should just call it, dude, this is the best pound for pound fighter in the sport. And it was basically like, just take out the term pound for pound. Who's the best fighter in boxing? That's all it meant. and they
Right.
turned it into these lists, and then people they just come up with made up criterias, and pound for
Exactly.
pound means like who moves up more weight classes. Well, that's not necessarily what it means at all. Like, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Hagler was you could argue, a pound for pound guy, but he didn't move up weight classes. It just depends. But yeah,
Right.
people, use it, it's everyone has their own little criterias, and some websites have a point structure. Like this guy gets so many points depending where they put him, and I just think the whole thing's lonely. Okay, I've
It's just,
always just said I've always
yeah.
had my guy that's the number one pound for pound, and that's it, dude. They have lists now where you see Clarissa Shields in the top 10 pound for pound with men. Okay, that's when you know shit's ridiculous. The same.
I mean, I think Shields, man. Listen, I think that she's phenomenal. I think, I think in her own right, what has she's accomplished? As an Olympian, gold medalist,
Right.
and the shallow waters of the women boxing, and she's not ducking anybody. She's fighting what's the availability. I don't think it's her fault. You know what I mean? Of the
Right.
pool of sharks so that she can fish out, but at the same time, to say pound for it's for men too, like men boxing. To say pound for pound, it's to me you're reaching, because you can't even break down why this guy's pound for pound. And the
Right.
majority, 80 to 90% of boxing fans. I'm sorry, I'm taking jabs at boxing fans, but a lot of you guys can't even fucking give me a definition of what that means. Like you can't even tell me. You can't even give me reason why this guy's pound for pound. You can't even break it down. So why are we using that? I mean, money, how much much money they draw, how, what the signing is, all this, that doesn't mean pound for pound at all. It's just crazy to me, man. Sorry, that's my rant. But
yeah, man, it
might be the Corona talking, fellas. I'm sorry.
I think they're talking about the pounds in their pockets, bro, instead of like their boxing skills and shit. I don't know what the hell's going on up here, but
I remember back in the early 2000s, after Shane Mosley had skipped over a weight class and moved up, and he became the welterweight champ after beating De La Hoya. I remember hearing on an HBO broadcast, him and Larry Merchant were going back and forth a little bit about who they thought pound for pound was the number one guy at the time, and Foreman actually said that. He was like, you should make your list off of who draws more fans, who makes the most money. That's the guy who should be the pound for pound. And I'm like, what? Like, I don't understand that one, but
it was George Foreman that said this.
Yes, it was George Foreman. I think it was when
I think he was doing that
Mosley,
because he had like most revenues of his what was that
the Foreman grill.
The Foreman grill. He was making such shitload. I love George Foreman. Don't get me wrong, but I think there's just certain things that we just need to leave alone and get rid of. Certain things like we can't get rid of the sanction bodies, unfortunately, because like I said, belts matter to fighters. This is how you get another fighter to want to face another guy because of belt. Look at Canelo. He said originally about Gennady Golovkin, hey, go get a title and I'll fight you. Go do this, okay? Look at right now, Jorge Norris telling Ryan Garcia, go, showing all his bouts on his display box and all that. Get one of these, and then we'll talk about it. So titles do mean something, but it's to the fighters, fighters alone. To us, it doesn't mean anything. We all know who's the baddest man on the planet. We all know of their division, and we all know who is the champion. But those things we can't get. But to say pound for pound or other things like that, I say we need to just start scratching that off and throwing it away. I get people that are so upset about the Ring magazine, and I'm like, well, it's human flaw. And there's an agenda behind it. Hello?
Man. No, Paul says we need a vete a la verga list for bums. Okay, Chicago Prophet says, I miss hearing Foreman and Merchant bickering. True Titan says, people started to consider revenue earning in pound for pound. That's when I stopped paying attention to it. And the Mas Chingon list, bro, is no Paul wants that list. Tone Brown, salute. How's it going, bro? Shout out to everybody in the chat. Make sure you throw a jab at the damn like button. Check it out. So there's some rumblings and rumors going on. The Athletic put out a story that Danny Garcia is going to be facing off against Errol Spence. then Garcia comes out on some DAZN show and says, well, I mean, they told me it's either Errol Spence or Manny Pacquiao, and he seemed a little more interested in the Manny Pacquiao fight. Why wouldn't he? Right?
Exactly.
So, Dave, is that, you think that fight's going to happen with Errol Spence in the fall, and is it going to be pay-per-view in your opinion?
Against Manny Pacquiao?
Either or, like, who do you think he's going to fight, and do you think it'll be pay-per-view?
It's going to go pay-per-view. I mean, already Errol Spence has already dabbled into the pay-per-view. He did it with Sean Porter, Mikey Garcia. I mean, that's the only way that's going to go. Unfortunately, once a fighter gets into that territory, I mean, it's like you walk into the water, getting off the sand and walking into the water. Why would you want to live on the sand and not be in the water anymore? Right. So I think it's a very sellable fight, to tell you the truth. Either guy, with Errol Spence and Manny Pacquiao. I know everybody wants to shit on Danny Garcia. I see that all the time. But here's a guy that dismantled Lucas the Machine Matisse when everybody was praising Matisse. And I was like, me and a few others were not on that train. I actually predicted that Danny Garcia was going to dismantle him, So I think my problem with Danny now is that if you watch the beginning of his career, when he was a prospect and he became a champion after beating Amir Khan, he fell in love with his power. Now he's a one-handed guy. Facing Manny Pacquiao, he's going to have a lot of problems, a la Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman had problems, and I said that too. I know everybody was writing off Manny Pacquiao. They were like, oh, Manny's going to get knocked out. He's going to get destroyed by Keith Thurman. I was like, no, he isn't. Because if Keith Thurman had problems with Danny Garcia, he's going to have a lot of problems with Manny Pacquiao. And if Danny Garcia had problems with Keith Thurman, guess what? He's going to have a lot of problems with Manny Pacquiao. Manny Pacquiao is a two-handed fighter. Manny hasn't forgotten that it takes two hands to win fights, not one. Danny's going to have a lot of issues. Same thing with Errol Spence. Errol uses both hands still. He hasn't fallen in love with his power. What he's fallen in love with is his boxing skills and how to kind of just dismantle you by being a boxer puncher. So wherever route that Danny goes, if he doesn't change and go back to kind of reform himself to the old Danny Garcia, which was using his legs and just kind of setting up the punches, he's just there as the warm body for these two guys to finally meet, Errol Spence and Manny Pacquiao, later on next year.
What are your thoughts, Chief Funky? Which fight do you think happens? And either or, do you think it's going to be pay-per-view?
I agree. It will be pay-per-view. I agree. Both guys are stylistically matchup problems for Danny Garcia. Although I'll give Danny one thing. I know he has definitely fallen in love with his power. That's for sure. But one thing I got to give him, man, he's got really good timing on that left hook that he likes to throw, which could be very dangerous to a lot of guys, especially someone like a Manny Pacquiao who throws so many punches. He could slip one in there and catch him, and Pacquiao might not get up if he gets hit with that left hook from Danny Garcia. But I still think that's a bad matchup for him. I think Pacquiao is just too fast. His movement's too good still. Garcia is very flat-footed nowadays. I think you'll have a lot of trouble trying to catch him. And Errol Spence, well, I mean, the thing is this with Errol Spence, we haven't seen him at all since his big accident that he had.
Right.
So, I mean, he's had a lot of time off, which is good for him. I'm glad he's been able to take time off to recover, to see if he's, 100% ready back in the game. I mean, to jump right back in with a guy like Garcia, who is a top 10 fighter at 147, that's a big little step right there for him coming off of that accident. So, I mean, I don't know, man. I mean,
how old is the kid?
Spence?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good question. I'm not sure how old he is.
Man, find out for us. How old is he?
Yeah, we need a fact checker really quick. I don't know where AJ 10's at, so I'm going to have to do my own fact checking. So, he's 30 years old. 30 years old.
Yeah, it's up there. I still think, though, he's young enough to recoup, get himself back together. You know what I mean? I mean, if he was pushing 35, I would say it's a little bit different. I would say, like, it's kind of difficult to make that, that leap and get in with Manny Pacquiao. I mean, with Danny Garcia, Errol Spence, So I don't know, man. I mean, I agree with G-Funk, but at the same time, I'm like wondering, youth may have a say in it, of him like recuperating and getting back 100%, So.
Yeah.
Kind of
That's
hard to say.
gonna be something. And you know what? I remember when the crash happened, and as soon as I read, there was some lacerations and loss of teeth. I
Hmm.
knew it was serious. You know what I mean? I saw people
Yeah.
posting like on Twitter, like, he just lost a couple of teeth. Like, bro, like, you don't just break teeth. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
that's like that's a big impact. And to have surgery there, that's important, and that's the big X factor. Like, if it was before this accident, I would favor Spence, right? Like, I'm talking 70%, 30%. Now I'm 60-40 about it. Maybe even closer than that. I don't know how Spence is
Right.
going to react in the ring, man. I don't know how that's going to go.
Mhm.
But so we don't even know if the fight's going to happen. Now, what about a Manny
Well,
Pacquiao fight, Dave? How do you think a Manny Pacquiao fight? You think they'll do that pay-per-view? No fans, nothing in the
well, real
crowd?
quick, just to
Sure.
add what G Funk just said about Danny Garcia's power. I agree with G. I think that that's the one thing that he carries and can possibly turn around. We can't count out Danny Garcia with that power. Right hand, left hand. The guy's got. He sits down on those punches really, really well. The other thing that Danny brings to the table is his drive. Like, I've never seen the kid give up. Has anybody seen the kid give up? He's always trying to land a big shot. Even
Right.
when he fought Keith Thurman in that second half, it was Keith Thurman that decided that Optus did not engage anymore. He put on his running shoes, and he decided to like circle around him and not go after him. So Danny Garcia's punching power at 147, it's real. It's a real deal. Now, going back with Manny Pacquiao, I think, it would happen. I'll tell you why, because Manny's all about the green. Manny's a prize fighter. He doesn't hide that. Remember when he didn't want to fight in Las Vegas because of taxes? And he was like, I'm not going to fight there. Send me somewhere else. And he was doing that. So to me, Manny's like, I don't care where it happens. It doesn't matter. I just got to get paid. And rightfully so. These guys are prize fighters. At the end of the day, they're prize fighters. They got to get paid.
Absolutely, man. We will see. What do you think, Chief Funky? I mean, about a pay-per-view with no crowd or anything like that? You think we're ready for that? I mean, UFC's already doing it. So what do you think?
Yeah, I think that UFC is already kind of set the precedent, I guess. They've had a pay-per-view with no fans, so I think boxing will probably end up doing that. I'm not sure which fight that will be. I think a fight with a Manny Pacquiao and Earl Spence, that's a huge fight at 147. Don't know if they want to miss out on that gate money, for that. So I think the more realistic one would probably be Pacquiao versus Garcia to do in front of an empty place. But you never know, man. I mean, we're all dying to see some boxing here. I know these guys are dying to make some money, whether fans are there or not. So, I think it's a good chance that it happens. But I don't know, man. I'm to the point where I'm ready to see a real fight, man. An actual real live fight.
So, let me just kind of add this here, okay?
Go ahead.
One, when it comes to the pay-per-view, if whether it's PBC, right? If they're smart, this is what they would do. They would lower the pay-per-view price. And let me tell you why, okay? Working in the TV industry, the reason pay-per-views are priced so high because they're assuming people are going to have a fight party, invite people over, and they all pitch in for the fight and stuff like that, right? People aren't doing that right now with quarantine, right? So I think they're going to have to lower those prices, bro, like maybe $40, $30, $20 or something like that if they do a pay-per-view fight, in my opinion, is what they should do. But go ahead, Dave. What were you going to say?
I was going to say this. I was reading this the other day. Soccer fans are actually paying to have their cutout image of themselves on a board placed in the stadiums. They're paying for that. Boxing fans, you can do the same thing. Would you guys be willing to pay to have an image of you? G-Funk, you imagine a big old G-Funk cardboard cutout sitting in the stands?
It's all free advertising, bro. put on the T-shirt. These I'll be like this.
Hey, I was gonna say only if I could put my Canelo Power shirt on it.
I thought you were gonna say the only way I would do that if they allow me to put up my sod of grass, all green, in the front of me.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it's a good idea. Advertisers could pay for the T-shirt that the person front row has, or something like that. Hey, it's actually a good idea. It's better than nothing.
And the only reason I'm asking this, because you have a lot of these mamons that are fans and even doing their media. They go, true fans pay, to be there to support their fighters. Okay, I'm wondering if those cabrones, are you going to pay for that cardboard? Because I hope you do, because you put your money where your mouth is at and stuff, because they don't think that you paying for the zone and all that is you're a real fan, that you're really contributing. So I found that to kind of be hilarious.
But by the way, Chicano Prophet, your ass ain't going to be seeing no fight in a theater. Bro, the shits are closed, bro, okay? And you're going to have to pay for that fight, but that's my point. You know how many people are going to be like, man, I want to see this fight? They're not allowing big crowds right now or shit like that. You know what I mean? Or I don't want to go. I live with my abuelita. I don't want to come back home and get her sick. Whatever the case is, right?
I don't know, man. Rastas, sometimes, I mean, look what happened on Cinco de Mayo in San Jose, California. These fools were like, I'm not staying home. I'm going cruising. And they did it. And guess what? They all got like I forgot what the percentage was of them, these pendejos. They got like COVID-19. Now they're regretting it. Like, east side of San Jose has got the highest right now of infected people. So you never know.
Absolutely. Check it out. A couple of months ago, someone said he's referring to Errol Spence, still in the gym, but not sparring because of problems with the mouth area. That's very concerning. Chicano Prophet, good point. And since the fans won't be condensed, there may be buy orders if it's reasonable. Absolutely. Put it at a reasonable price. More people will buy it. And I think overall they'll probably make more money. Who knows? But they have to make the price reasonable, bro. You know what I mean? Just because of the circumstance. And I get the point about the Chicanos, but because of that, they should lower the price. Okay.
Did they lower the price for the UFC?
No,
they did not.
and then look what the numbers that they brought. So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, true.
I'm not sure. Because boxing is the same thing. Like boxing's like Nacho Bernstein.
Right.
They're not gonna budge. They're like, what? They did that many numbers and everybody paid. We're not going to do that. There's no way.
By the way, I could never take the UFC numbers for face value. They're a private company,
right? And
even ESPN puts an asterisk next to a number, then it says unofficial numbers. What do you mean? Like you're ESPN, you put on the pay-per-view. Right. What do you mean they're non-official?
Yeah.
And I mean,
people are desperate right now, man. They want to see live action. I have casual
hear you.
Boxing fans texting me this, right? They're texting me these articles about Conor McGregor accepting the challenge from Oscar De La Hoya, and they're like, "Oh, dude, I want to see this thing, man! Like, I'm ready to see this." I'm like, "Are you guys are?"
What about this? What if they put like screens on the seats and we could watch it like we're watching a fight and we'll be like on like this? You know what I mean? They could do something like that, But I don't know. Look, at the end of the day, we will see. I'll take it. There's a lot of people that are like, no, I don't want to watch boxing without a crowd. Okay, so no boxing at all or boxing without a crowd. Like, which one do you want? You know what I mean? Like I'll take it without the crowd, bro. All right?
Same here.
Same here, man.
Yeah, so I'll just take it that way. With that said, all right? Really quick, Robeisy Ramirez is expected to return June 9th, or at least according to him, he is. All right. Right now, I believe he's 2-1. All right. 2 straight wins after his disastrous debut. I mean, gold medalist out of Cuba. He was known as the guy that beat Shakur Stevenson in the gold medal match and all this hype, and then he just loses. And he lost to Aiden Gonzalez, and he's already talking. He's talking about down the line, I want to face Shakur Stevenson. Why isn't he, talking about facing Gonzalez again, Dave, and avenging his loss right there?
You always got to attach your name to the most popular name, and that's just the way. It's a traditional way of these fighters now. I mean, it's an internet way of what fighters are doing. They attach themselves to the guy that's the most talked about and has their clout. That has the clout, right? That's the magic carpet you jump on. That's why he's doing it.
All right. But you don't think, He should fight. He could beat that guy. Okay, he's a journeyman, bro. He just fight that dude, get that win, and get him out of the way. Or I think I'm not even gonna risk it. I'm just gonna move on.
I mean, here's the thing. Like, look, I like Ryan Garcia. I think Ryan Garcia's got some good skills. Okay. Did Ryan Garcia, I mean, if you're going to bitch and moan about Canelo Alvarez's, intro into boxing and where he's at, I mean, at least Canelo was fighting a whole lot before getting all this prize money and recognition. He was out there for a minute, Ryan Garcia, here he is, YouTube sensation, Instagram sensation, and he's getting all this recognition. And I think the younger generation, you're going to see a lot of this. Unfortunately, you're going to see a lot more of this because this is where we're at. This is where we're at now with our sport. It's quicker to get the, I mean, look, recording artists are out there. They're able to get their stuff out there and faster than the more traditional way. Fighters, not just fighters, but people in general, they don't want to take the long haul to get to the money point. They want it immediately. That's where we're at, So do I blame him? No, because he sees exactly how it worked for A, B, and C. Why wouldn't he want to do it? That's why he's like, no, I don't want to redeem myself. Why should I redeem myself? I can attach my name to this guy, maybe possibly create enough noise where everybody's gonna be like, yeah, I want to see this fight. Let's make this fight happen because we're in the internet world.
Chief Funky, what do you think, man? I mean, he's over here trying to cloud chase a dude he already beat in the gold medal match, by the way. All right, but he ain't talking about the dude that beat him in his debut match, bro.
Yeah, I know. That's crazy. Pretty funny. But honestly, I think he'll probably end up getting back in there with that guy eventually. I don't know how quick this fight with Stevenson will happen. Although he is, becoming one of the biggest, youngest stars in boxing right now.
It will happen.
I look forward to that fight, man. I look forward to that rematch, if possible, between Ramirez and Stevenson. But he's got to get in there and beat this guy. I'm an old school fight fan, man. So the dude beats you in a close fight. Hey, get back in there and get rid of this dude. Show them why you're the medalist and all that good stuff, man. And then you start calling people out like Stevenson. But yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know when that's going to happen. I hope it does, though, because I always like to see these matches take place in the professionals boxing ring from amateurs,
But Dave, the guy that beat him is Aiden Gonzalez. He's 4-2-2, bro. He's got to rematch that dude and beat him, bro.
Yeah, but let me ask you this: what's more sellable for a promoter to put out? This kid beat Shakur Stevenson, or he lost to his debut to a guy that a lot of us don't even know.
You're right.
Right? The story's more juicy that, hey, he beat him in the Olympics. He beat him, in the amateurs. That's the story that they're going to sell. That story is going to be more appealing. And trust me, if it happens, do you think ESPN is going to mention that this kid Ramirez lost in his pro debut? They probably will throw it in there really quick. But the meat of the story is going to be, hey, he beat Shakur. This is a revenge for Shakur. It's going to surround Shakur. So, of course, Shakur and them are going to want that fight because it's a sellable fight and it's going to put asses in the seat. Whereas, fight the guy that beat you in your pro debut, where you probably make minimums. You won't probably meet minimums, and you'll get more money fighting Shakur, and you might lose that fight, or you might win that fight, and it can escalate you different. That's the gamble that they're doing, which is a very smart move, to tell you the truth. You go with the guy that's got the clout, you go with the more recognizable name, and you go with the better story. It's a no-brainer, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, we talked off the line. You mentioned how Lomachenko lost to Salido when he became more established. They were out for the rematch. But that's Orlando Salido, though. Orlando Salido was a world champion. And, this guy lost to a dude who's just a journeyman. I just feel like he has to avenge it. I mean, unless
I don't think he has to, man, to tell you the truth. Because here's the thing. If he beats Shakur Stevenson, he just beat the man. You know what I mean? And it could either boost him, or it could be like when people beat Oscar De La Hoya. You know what I mean? They beat him, but they didn't do much for their career. You know, because Oscar still went on and kept fighting and was still a mega star. You know, that could happen. It could happen for Ramirez, though, on the other hand, where he beat Shakur Stevenson. Guess what? He's on the map. People want to see him. You know, so people are going to forgive him for losing to a journeyman in his pro debut. They could say, hey, man, he got cold feet. I don't know. You know what I mean? His fans will eventually, if that happens, would eventually come up with the best excuse ever to allow him to avoid, because the money's got to be there, you know? And at the same time, the money's got to be right, not just for him, but for the opponent, the guy that beat him. That guy, if he beats Shakur Stevenson, I'll guarantee it won't happen. And I'll tell you why. Because the other guy would be like, well, shit, I want more money.
Yeah.
So money always comes into play.
Yeah, money always comes into play. And look, I watched that fight, man, and I felt Robeisy Ramirez won, but it wasn't official.
Same
the
here.
The knockdown just played a big role in it, and it was like a 4-round fight and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I mean, hey, he wouldn't be the first guy that lost early in his career.
Right.
You know, and you know, a lot, even Salido, we talked about him. Salvador Sanchez had a loss early in his career. And they kept Hopkins, right? They kept it moving. So I get it. ESPN removed the loss from Lomachenko's record when they were showing him on TV. So maybe they'll do that with the Robeisy Ramirez, bro. They'll be like, he's the undefeated Robeisy Ramirez. He had that one loss. Right? Anyway, we're gonna move on. You know, or maybe they'll say, "Oh, he was robbed in that fight," and move on or something. You know what I mean?
It wouldn't surprise me. ESPN always does something like that. Plus, there's so many people that don't even know shit about boxing that watch those ESPN cards. It won't even bother them. You know,
they'll hear gold medalist defeated Shakur Stevenson for the gold medal match, and that's all that will sell. So I do gotta agree with that. You guys you changed my mind a little bit, Ash. All right. Now, Ian says maybe he saw how Lomachenko never rematched Salido and got away with it. Yeah. Although, look, man, this dude ain't the guy he lost to. Okay. It ain't no Salido.
That's not true, though. Lomo did offer them, and it was Salido on their team that didn't. They felt shaft. They were like, "You're offering us very little money," because Lomo was he was like, he was the star. Regardless, and that's what I mean. Like when Oscar De La Hoya lost to somebody, or even like Eric Morales when he lost, it didn't mean, or Manny Pacquiao, it didn't mean that other person was going to automatically be a mega star. You know, it just doesn't happen that way. You know, so Orlando should have been the A side, but guess what? He was treated as the B side for negotiations for a rematch.
Absolutely, you guys are tuning in to the May 20th edition of Hispanics Causing Panic. Make sure you throw a jab at the like button, hit that cross at the subscribe, and the nice uppercut at the bell button. That way you're notified every time D-Style Boxing comes on live. Dave, tell everybody what's going on with the Leave It in the Ring radio. What do you have going on right now?
Well, I started doing a show that I've always wanted to do, which is outside of boxing, is interview folks that it's not Bob, so what I call it's called Gloves Down, Beers Up. And it's just basically, putting the gloves away and talking about other interests that I've always had outside of boxing, because like I said, everybody knows me as, 97 Rub, Dave Duenas is the boxing guy, but I've never like spoken to anybody about my outside interests. So if you haven't had a chance, go back. I've interviewed artists, two artists, a reggaeton artist, Vachento. And then if you're from my era and time of the 90s, when the clubs were popping and they were still cruising in the streets of Northern California and in San Jose, interviewed a high energy a freestyle artist by the name of Spanish Fly who sung Precious. Really interesting interview. I got another guy that I'm going to have on soon. I got 2 scheduled interviews. I got another guy that's pretty interesting where he got life in San Jose. He got life in prison when he was not the shooter. And he was able to beat the case after like 25 years, man. He got like 25 to life. And he was not looking at, day of light to come out and stuff. So I have him scheduled to sit down and talk to him about all of that. And as usual, the normal schedule, man, the usual stuff that we're doing, throwing just content. I'm throwing up a lot of past interviews that I've done, just this kind of like, relive it. Everybody can relive those interviews. Some really good heat moments. I just put up the Issa Smith and Kid Chocolate, Peter Quillen, when they both, were going at it on Twitter, and then they tagged me about, Issa Smith, like, well, get on, leave it in the ring, and I was like, well, shit, that's a great idea. And it ended up becoming a really good iconic night for Leaving the Ring, because these guys were just like, well, it was more Issa Smith. He was laying it on Peter Quillen, telling him to fix his grill.
Absolutely, man. Make sure you guys check that out. Subscribe to Live in the Ring here on YouTube and hit that bell button. That way you're notified when they go on live. Gonna try and go on with Dave here and there on his channel as well. Hopefully we do those Monday shows once in a while, at least once a month or something like that. Shout out to Boxing Conversations, Red Joe and Chicano Prophet says, with these, will these fighters be used to these lower purses? They've been used to big money while doing little. I mean, I don't know if they're going to get lower purses, bro, but we'll see how it goes with that. What's up, Joe Lopez 40? Yeah, make sure you guys throw a jab at the damn like button. And make sure you subscribe to G Funky 84 here on YouTube as well. All right. Me and G Funky, tomorrow we should be doing something on his channel about the Owen Hart incident, bro. I mean, I found out a lot of things on the documentary. Dude, I was blown away that Vince McMahon sued the widow of Owen Hart, right? I mean, I couldn't believe it. I know it's a countersuit. And Dave, I don't know how much you know about wrestling or something, but you're familiar about Owen's Hart death, right?
I'm not, man. I'm going to be honest. I'm not. I mean, I was when I was a kid. Like, I met the Animal, Andre the Giant, Hulk Hogan, but I was a kid, you know? Yeah, I mean, I watched it when Mike Tyson went on.
I got you. Who did
it? And then my heart was crushed when I found out that it wasn't. I mean, I don't know if you guys know this, but it's not real.
Breaking news! Breaking news!
Everybody.
Breaking news! It is real.
Well, I'll tell you what is real. Owen Hart fell from the rafters. They had him like on a harness.
Oh yes, I did. Yeah. No, yeah, man. Yeah.
And then sued the widow. I couldn't believe it when I was like, what? It was a countersuit because she was suing him for the death of her husband. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's Dark Side of the Ring, Owen Hart from Vice. It's a great documentary.
I wanted to start watching that, but unfortunately, I just haven't had a chance. And I'm gonna tell you what. When I started watching the first episode, which was about Hector, it was about Macho Man, right? Not Hector, about Macho Man.
Macho Man, right?
I started watching it because I was a I loved Macho Man and stuff. All that fire he brought and stuff. But my old lady, my wife at the time, she's like, she's like, I don't want to watch this, So we had to switch it over to ID. I'm like, you want to watch this, but you don't want to watch that. I'm like, all right, whatever.
Sounds like my wife.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm telling you, bro, they're actually kind of fascinating. Even if you're not a wrestling fan, they're more fascinating than the wrestling.
I have to say, Vice has done a great job with these little mini documentaries on these stories of these wrestlers. But make sure you guys are there and to watch that, because I got a special little thing I want to bring out during that show, a special little story about Owen Hart. So make sure you guys are there, man.
Well, there you go. With that said, man, I want to talk about mi vida loca, and I'm not talking about my life, all right? Johnny Tapia, man, and in the description, I have an interview from Leaving the Ring from a couple years ago.
Oh wow, yeah.
I interviewed Tapia. The link is there, and when you watch that, make sure you subscribe to the channel as well. Very, very good interview. And with that said, Dave, talk to us about what do you remember about Johnny Tapia, like just in general.
Johnny, man, I mean, I got it. When I did the interview, which was great. I mean, this guy is first off, he's my wife's favorite fighter. His book had just came out. We both bought the book, and I think within 3 days we read the whole book about his life and had a much better understanding of who Johnny Tapia was. And I was able to relate to a lot with Johnny, and the reason, even before reading the book, of his lifestyle and what he was going through, his struggle with drugs, is because my uncles, mi tío Mocho, is an old school homeboy. My Theo passed away, but he struggled, but in and out of going to Folsom, quitting, and drugs, and being gang related, etc. So I grew up around all that. So I remember doing an interview and I was telling them that I was a huge fan. It was like an idol of mine. And I remember getting a lot of flack for that. They were like, how could you like this guy? This guy, was a, etc. and an X amount, whatever. And I was like, well, because the fact is that I grew up around that. I am a product of a broken home. I'm a product of a broken system. I never really talk about it on the air. I never really go into depth of what my life, what I've been and what I've done, but I'm no angel. I'm not apologetic for people that continue that lifestyle, but I definitely feel for them because it's a web, man, that's very difficult to get off of, and this is the same year when Edwin Balladio had just murdered his wife. And I remember the guy that was co-hosting with me, they used to do a YouTube channel, Strikeheart. We were prepping before this interview and we were talking about it. And Strikeheart was like, hey, should I ask him if he's ever gotten to that point, maybe thinking because of, the drugs that, which make you spin out of your mind. Should I ask him that thought ever came across killing Teresa? And I was immediately like, yeah, go for it. I think that's a great question. And at first, Strikeheart was kind of tiptoeing around that question. And I just went for it. I was like, hey, man, this is what he's saying. And Johnny's like, yeah, you do, Johnny took it. He knew where we were going with it. And he was like, what do you think? You asked me if I ever thought about killing my wife. And he goes right into that, and I think Johnny's just so refreshing because of everything the guys went through, man. If you haven't had a chance, read his goddamn book because you'll have a better understanding of why he was in the ring and outside the ring. This guy just went through the mill, bro. It's so difficult to sit there and judge this person without knowing what he's been through and what he's done and how much burden this guy carries on his shoulders, And I felt his pain, even in that interview, watching his documentary after he had passed away. I felt his pain, wow, because like I said, I'm a product of a broken home.
Right. Yeah, man, a lot of pain in the life of Johnny Tapia, and reading through. The amount of things this guy went through is unbelievable, man.
Yeah.
Right. That's why a question it was like nothing to him. Shit, I've been through so much. Asking me a question is nothing. You know what I mean?
Pretty much, yeah.
But I liked how he kept saying, man, man, if I ain't telling you the truth, I ain't not gonna lie to you or something like that.
Yeah, I'm not gonna talk about it. He's like, if I'm not telling the truth, I'm not gonna. It was in those lines, yeah, and yeah, I dude, I was so. You want to talk about truthful? He was scheduled to fight, and Johnny, why don't you retire? And what he said was, if you remember, he goes, dude, I don't want to fight. I'm being forced to fight. They wouldn't release me unless I agreed to fight. It wasn't like he wasn't aware that he was out of his prime.
Right.
But he was now basically what he was a circus act to stay out of jail.
Chief Funky, what do you remember about Johnny Tapia, man?
Man, a lot of good things with Tapia, especially in the ring. Outside of the ring, unfortunately, he ran into some trouble. But I want to say something real quick. A little fun fact, I guess I could say, with Johnny Tapia. His very last professional fight was on June 4th, 2011, which is the exact same day that I got married. So it's a pretty fun thing there with me in the last time that this guy fought. But man, he's had a ton of great fights over the years. This guy has to be considered, at least in my opinion, and I'm pretty sure in most people's opinion, he's got to be in the top 10 best Mexican American fighters of all time.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's I think he's a 5-time champion. He doesn't have that many losses on record either. Considering some of the guys he's been in there with, his fight with what was the name of the other guy from his city? Was it Romero?
Danny Romero, yeah. Danny
Romero. That was a good fight. The Ayala fights were great. And then of course, he's ran into some trouble, and like 97 Rough just said, um, the story is relatable to me also. Not to be funny here, and please guys understand, I'm not trying to be funny about what this guy went through in his life. But when my dad and I started to notice Johnny Tapia and we started to watch him regularly, the things that he would do, his mannerisms, things like that, like we knew like that automatically that he had a drug problem without even knowing the background. Right. Because unfortunately, I grew up around a lot of drug addicts. My father was abuser early in his life, and while I was young, and a lot of people that he knew were abusers also. You could just tell right away. If you've been around those kind of people, you can just tell right off the bat.
Right.
And honestly, I didn't even know that he had those kind of issues until he fought Barrera, and they brought it up before the fight, all the issues that he had. So, once I heard that, I was like, damn, I unfortunately, I kind of already knew it without knowing it. It's sad that we have to go through this, but it's something that's plagued our community for years, man. That's something that I pray every day that our people can just wake up and leave this garbage alone. Because like Dave said earlier, man, can you just imagine if we all came together thing and put the drugs down and the gang bang and stuff down? Like, man, we'd be a strong people. Unfortunately, we're not there. But Johnny Tapia is a guy that went through tremendous adversity outside of the ring, dealing with his drug problems and being incarcerated here and there. And then to come back, man, after 4 years or something, and then to become a champion, a world champion many times over. That's a hell of an accomplishment, man. Especially in a sport like boxing. It's not like any other sport where there's no contact or something like that. Like this is the fight game, and then to come back and to become a world champion like he did and have the great fights like he did. He's got a hell of a story. And Dave, once we come off the air, if you want to say now, let me know the name of that book, man. I would love to get a hold of it, add it to my collection of books, and I would love to read that thing, man, because,
I know it's just Johnny Tapia. I don't know if I can't see right there. Let me add this really quick, because even in the interview, I had asked them, because I'm an advocate of not believing that we should incarcerate our children. I think that when you put kids into juvenile halls, you just make them better criminals. Okay, it's our way of like throwing them aside. Like right now, you see a lot of kids that they're on their phones a lot, or they're doing stuff. They don't even focus on society. They don't even know how to function outside of that little box that they've created and stuff, And I believe that juvenile hall has always been that first step of showing kids that you don't give a shit, It's kind of ironic that we're talking about Johnny Tapia, because I was talking about my friend Emily, who's a publicist, and we were talking about like just the general of Chicano, okay, the culture. And I was telling her about, the thing that sucks is that a lot of people miss the whole Chicano culture. Like when you tell an outsider what Chicano culture is, they automatically think gangbanging. They automatically think like the negativity of our people, okay, that are American, Mexican Americans, okay, which I really hate by saying we're this land was Mexico before, but going back what I was talking about, it sucks because see when I was a kid growing up, we were told by the system we weren't shit. You ain't gonna be shit. We couldn't even walk certain streets. We couldn't go like it was, from 1st Street to 16th Street. You go to 16th Street, past 16th to 20th Street, it was Portugal. If you went to the South Side, that was whites and blacks. Like we were literally told, you can't do this, you can't do that. And if you did, you got stopped. Okay. So, and then when you end up in the system, when you're in school, they basically already prepping you. Future is, like my dad was trying to go to college. My dad was trying to be a police officer, and they were literally trying to convince him, you can't be a cop. You could be a janitor. You could be a carpenter. You could be a cement guy, but you want to be a cop? Are you serious about that? No, you might want to rethink everything. So Johnny Tapia is a product of that. And he's a product of a guy that ended up in the juvenile hall systems at a very early age. And it was told, this is what you're going to be. And I think the beauty of his story, man, is he just kind of rose above that, became a world champion, but he just couldn't get rid of his demons. Like most of our cousins and uncles, you know, like I said, my uncle and my cousin who passed away, it was back to back. They passed away. And these guys were a big impact in my life. You know, I mean, yeah, man, they were druggies. Yeah, they were, you know, involved in some real shit, but they were great people, good-hearted people. But it was embedded in their soul that they were pieces of shit. And I think that's terrible. And we had a chance to talk to Johnny Tapia about that and said, do you agree that we should put, like, basically throw these kids to the side to really just kind of let them know you're pieces of shit. This is what you're going to be, rather than talking to them and put them in counseling and kind of get into the root of what the problem is. You know, I don't mean to make it to like a real serious show. I apologize. Because like I said, this is like, it's a very deep thing for me because I've had so many people in my life, in my family, that this has happened. I was one of the, like I said, I was a product of that.
Well, and the thing about boxing for a guy like Johnny Tapia is even when society tells you, no, you can't be a lawyer, you can't be a cop, you can't do all these good, you can't go to college. Can your parents afford college? No, then you don't go to college then. Right? Yeah. But you stay there. You stay right there. Even the Chicanos that make it, they toss the ladder out of the way. You know what I mean? They're the ones that hold you back the most sometimes. Okay, your own. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the thing about boxing is that you could fight your way. You know what I mean? That's what Johnny Tapia did. Boxing let him, you know, fight his way to making money, fight his way to making a good living for himself. You know, through boxing. That's what boxing does. And you know, the one thing about Johnny Tapia is this, and I'll let you go in a little bit, Dave. But the one thing about Johnny Tapia was. And you said it right. You don't mean to make it serious, but it becomes serious when you talk about Johnny Tapia.
Right.
Right. And his life from the beginning, bro, at a very young age, losing his mother and the way he lost his mother. Right. Yep. I don't even want to say how he lost his mother because everybody knows. There's no need to say it. You know what I mean? But Johnny Tapia would just say it. You know, and like that amazed me how it would just come out of his mouth how he lost his mom, who was unfortunately, you know, murdered. And worse, all right? And he had to deal with that. The heartbreaking thing that I recently found out that I did not know of until I started kind of reading a little bit up on him was that his wife, Teresa, actually hired a private investigator to look into the murder of his mom. They found out who it was, and then they found out that this dude died in a car crash. Allegedly, Johnny said he would have killed him, maybe found out. Do you believe that? Do you think he would have killed that dude?
I think he would have. Yeah, I absolutely believe that he would have. You know, I mean, you had a guy that was always in the brink of death. Like he flirted with it. You know, he didn't care. He said in an interview, I don't care. You know, I don't care. The crazy part is that you have a guy, and how many people right now, honestly, listening to the show, how many people do you know? You know, black, white, it doesn't matter. You know, like the color boundaries of drugs and poverty, there's no boundaries. Unfortunately, there isn't. So how many uncles, brothers, or dads, and even moms can literally not have no love for themselves, but love everybody around them? It's a common thing. Right. They literally believe they're a piece of shit, but everybody in their family is not. They're worth it. And they'll convince you you're worth it. But in their heart, they believe already, I'm not worth it. I you know what I mean? I'm okay. If I die today, tomorrow, I'm okay. And it's crazy, dude. It's freaking sad, you know, and it's really his story hits so much home with me because of my relatives. Like I said, you know, my you know, like even with my dad, to this day, my dad struggles with a lot of demons, you know, and I witness it. I sit there. My dad's an old ass man, and this fucker will go on a you know, on a hiatus, you know what I mean? Where I literally have to hunt him down like the way I used to hunt him down at 5, 6, 7 years old in pajamas. My mom used to send me in the bars to get him out.
Yeah.
And at my age right now, I'm still doing the same thing for this cabrón, you know? So it's a real thing. And like having a chance to speak to, you know, Johnny, man, was like, it was great. it was, I don't know. I guess you could say it was like kind of therapy of talking to him. I was excited, but at the same time, I was trying to keep my composure. I don't know if that makes sense. I can't keep my composure with them because it was a very emotional interview for me, not for the other guys, but for me. And then like when I had fans like, like, oh man, you're praising this guy. And it was like, dude, my uncle was the same way. You know what I mean? Like my uncle was living at that time. Like, it's very difficult to look at these guys you grew up with, in a different light. You know what I mean?
Right. And another thing was, I remember, if you remember a couple years back, before he died, there was these stories that were coming out that his long lost father appeared or something, right? And it turned out that the guy was a fake. He wasn't really his dad.
Oh
right?
yeah.
Like, can you just imagine that? Like, it's just like, that's unbelievable to me that somebody would do that to this guy, right? Especially because listening to that interview, I mean, when he would say like, man, I see a father hug his son or a mother or whatever, like it makes me want to cry, right?
Yeah.
This guy has 12-round boxing fights, getting punched in the face. He ain't cry about that, but he'll cry when you watch somebody, hug somebody. Shout out to Blood Boxing in the chat, G-Funk, I mean, what do you make of that, man? As far as, he would just, want to cry, just seeing somebody hug his son, and then
I want to hug G-Funk right now. He looks all stunned.
But and not only that, like the fact that somebody was like an imposter, acted like he was his dad.
Crazy. Yep.
Yeah, that's terrible, man. Unfortunately, we got people who like to try to jump on certain situations, obviously for money, fame, whatever it may be.
Right.
This guy, he was a broken man for many years, and then for someone to do that, that's just evil to me, because like you said, he would say, I would see a son and a father, embrace, and it would make him emotional. Like and then you to come around and play these games, and like that's terrible, man. That's a terrible thing, Yeah, Tapia, man. It sucks. Like like 97 was saying, man. You just relate so much to this guy and what he's done. Same with me. I can relate to a lot of the things. I've had a lot of relatives that were in the same situation as Tapia. But the good thing for him was that he did have something that carried him out of that for a little bit, and that was the sport of boxing. He did great things in the ring, and he'll forever be remembered in my book as one of the best Mexican American fighters of all time, man. Mi vida loca, Tapia.
Look, and like me, like I had, like my dad had a lot of issues with drugs, growing up. Grew up with a single mother for many years of my life. Okay. And the way I made amends with my dad is when he literally, because he would try to connect with me and he would invite me to his house. And I was a teenager, bro. I had my friends. I had already gone past that. You know what I mean? Like the days to bond were like long gone. That happens to a lot of, fathers that don't tend to the kids. Yeah. You know what I mean? But he was trying to. And I remember one time, it was actually the Israel Vasquez, Rafael Marquez fight. He invited me to go watch that fight. You know what I mean? And like, you know what? Okay. Because I wanted to see that fight. It was, I believe, the second fight. And so I go to his house, and the way we made amends, honestly, and the way I found it to forgive him, when he looked at me in the eyes and he said, look, I was a piece of shit. Okay. Like there ain't no like way around it. I was just a piece of shit. Okay. I have no excuse. If you walk out and you never come back to see me again, I deserve it. But I want you in my life, right? And that's how he made amends. You know what I mean? Right. And he was never perfect after that. But again, when it comes to, understanding somebody who had problems with drugs and alcohol and left the whole family behind because of that, not saying Johnny Tapia did that in general, but
right.
Like I couldn't see a lot of my dad and Johnny Tapia. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, and I think a lot of Latinos do, a lot of people in general do. Because what culture doesn't have family members whether close relatives or something, where someone's a druggie or something like that, it's a real problem.
It is. Yeah. It's a reality that most, like I said, if you're a minority, and when I mean minority, I don't mean, I'm not subjecting out like the Caucasians, because there's like I said, there's ghettos and everywhere. Yeah, shout out to Blood really quick, man. That's one of my boys right there. Blood is one of the OGs. One of the guys that actually convinced me to go on YouTube, man. If it wasn't for Blood, there would be no 97 Rough and Leaving the Ring. So shout out to my boy out there, man. It's been a minute since I've spoken to him. Well, going back to my thought of what we're talking about, mi tío Mocho, here was a guy that was born and raised. I mean, oh man, you want to talk about Nuestra La Familia. I mean, this guy was there, Charlie Brown getting murdered, getting killed in San Jose, California, taken out of the garage and, taken out because he decided to speak on against the, Northern Mexican organization. My uncle was there, my uncle was part of a bunch of stuff like that, the aggression of seeing these guys on drugs and being in that type of a lifestyle. I was there. I witnessed all that, but then I witnessed the beauty and the love that they had. Like my uncle, if I needed him, he was there. Me and my dad didn't see eye to eye on a lot of stuff. My dad went to prison. When my dad got out, when I was late in my teens, my dad thought, it's going to go back to the way it was. I'm dad. No, you're not. I already own my house already. I already did all this other shit. And I remember me and my dad were going to go into fisticuffs, man. We were about to throw blows. And my uncle stood behind me. Mi tío was right there, and here was a guy, like I said, got in that era, it was PCP. That was the thing to go for a lot of homeboys. That was the homeboy living, and other folks would have had a frown. I mean, they would frown on all of that, but I understood it. That was the only that I grew up in that environment. That's the only thing I understood, until I got out of that little box. Like I said, the way things are now, which is like a melting pot, which is beautiful. I think it's great. Like my kids, it's sad because my kids have never grown up around Chicanos. You know what I mean? Mexican Americans. They don't know that really. They only know that because of dad barbecues, right. Oldies but goodies. Dad pounds beers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Dad talks certain way. I have a certain lingo and stuff. When I get together with my homeboys from the old neighborhood, my sons get that. And they're like, that's different. That's a different side of dad, So yeah, that breaks my heart that they will never experience what I experienced living in downtown San Jose. But at the same time, it's a great experience because, like my son's best friend is a black, he's African-American. My youngest son's best friend is Vietnamese. When I was growing up, you didn't have that. Everything was segregated because and I'm not going to get all like government, but that's what the government wanted. They wanted segregation. They wanted to keep everybody apart to make you believe you guys were different. We're not fucking different. We all bleed the same. We all pray to the same God and everything else, but that's just the way things were done, but, going back, what I'm saying is just, and that's what I saw and that's what I witnessed. So with Johnny, interviewing Johnny, being a chance to sit there and talk to him, I was comfortable talking to him because I understood where he was coming from. I understood how he felt, not the experience, witness his mom. I mean, God witnessed his teacher, for crying out loud, die.
Yeah.
So this guy was just surrounded by death, but at the same time, he still knew how to love his family. He just didn't know how to love himself enough to keep himself alive and stay around, man. That's, and that's like, it goes back to my uncle who passed away. He was the same way. He loved his family. My uncle was in Folsom. My dad sent him a little picture like that, man. A little fucking picture like that. My uncle of my sister, okay? Yeah. And my uncle used to call my sister Butterfly because that was his like his favorite niece, okay? I don't know why, but that was his favorite niece. I'm kidding. I know why. But my tío They call let me just back up. They call him Mocho because he only had one hand. My uncle was born with a defect hand. He only had a thumb, and then it was like a thumb on a wrist. So we called him Mocho.
Yeah.
Okay. In the streets, they call him the one-handed bandit. So he was a left-handy. So my dad sends him this picture, okay, and my uncle's in Folsom, and my uncle sends back this fucking portrait, man, of my sister in great detail of that little portrait.
Oh wow. Okay.
You know, and he knew how to love others. He just did not know how to love himself like Johnny Tapia. Sad.
Man. And let me tell you, Johnny Tapia loved his fans. You know, if you want an autograph, you would take an autograph, bro. I'm from the Southwest. I'm in El Paso, Texas, but Texas is a big state. That is it's basically New Mexico. Okay, we're just officially Texas. All right, but right next to Las Cruces, New Mexico. It's a 30-minute drive. You know, and dude, I kid you not, bro. Like I go to I would go to offices and there was usually a poster or some portrait of Johnny Tapia. Okay. I mean, and this dude's loved in New Mexico. You know what I mean? And sometimes I wonder if he ever understood how many people loved him. You know what I mean? I don't know. Cause I don't know. But here's what I want to kind of say. All right. Johnny Tapia, Mexican-American fighter. Okay. Along with Paulie Ayala, Bobby Chacon, a lot of great, De La Hoya even, a lot of great Mexican-American fighters.
Right.
They're always like forgotten. Like whenever someone does like, hey, here's a list of the best American fighters of all time. Well, the U.S. has a rich history, bro. You know what I mean? So it's hard to crack the top 20. You know what I mean?
Right.
Okay, let's make a list of the top Mexican fighters. Long, rich history. You know what I mean? So guys like Johnny Tapia, Ayala, a lot of these guys, bro, they're almost lost in the shuffle whenever people talk about all these great fighters. I never heard any of my uncles, by the way, talk about Johnny. I was a Johnny Tapia fan. Right. My uncles were always following the dudes in Mexico. Like, you know what I mean? Like Chavez and all that, even though they were all growing up here and stuff, but they were just, Mexico.
Johnny didn't speak Spanish.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
I mean, he did, but he didn't he wasn't like so fluent with it,
Right. And that's the thing. Like anytime a Mexican fighter fights a Mexican-American fighter, my uncle, like I would grow up, they would go for the Mexican fighter. You know what I mean? Right. It was just a thing. Like I was in the house, they were going for Barrera, not for Johnny Tapia.
Yep.
So like for whatever reason, they weren't Mexican enough to be Mexican. They're not American enough to be American. What's going on? Chief Funk, did you experience some of that? Or what are your overall thoughts on these Mexican-American fighters being lost in the shuffle in boxing history?
I agree 100%, man. And I've seen that same exact thing with the older relatives. Anytime we had a Mexicano from Mexico against a Chicano from here, they would always go for the Mexicano every time, while the younger ones would go for the Chicano fighter. So I really understand that. Don't know why. I mean, I get why, but I really don't. I mean, we're all the same. I mean, to me, it's just hey, we're just born on different parts of the border, So, but unfortunately, we still have that divide. But yeah, these guys do get lost because there are. I mean, it's tough to add them in there with all the other American fighters. That's why we got to kind of. I know this might sound bad to some people. If we just separate them. Because we got to treat it that way for these guys to get their recognition. We got to kind of separate them from the rest because we have that, and plus it's so close. So you understand why some people are like that. But speaking of great Chicanos, I mean I don't want to go off topic too much here, but I want to give a rest in peace to. Jorge Santana, the guitarist for Malo, who just passed away last week. One of the best Chicano guitarists ever, man. Very underrated. He played with Malo. They had the hit Suavecito that, I don't think I've ever been to a cookout where they did not play that song. So, he was a big influence in the Chicano movement in the early 70s. So I just want to give a shout out to him and Tapia as well, man. I know he's got the bad history and everything, but he's a guy that came through a lot, man, and accomplished a lot too. So I think he deserves to be up there, man, with guys like that. And that's just my opinion on him, man.
Dave, just to close us out before we end the show, what are your thoughts about Mexican American fighters kind of being lost in a shuffle there whenever people talk about all-time greats?
I'll tell you what. I mean, look, when Jose Luis Castillo fought Diego Corrales, a lot of folks don't mention he's Chicano.
Yeah.
I remember watching that fight. I remember the fight happening, and I immediately told my brother, because my brother was rooting for Jose. I'm like, dude, Diego's from Sacramento. He's from Sacktown. What? And I go, he's Mexicano. He's not Mexican. And it's sad that a lot of us believe just because you're darker skinned, or you have, you look negro, that we don't associate with that. We do. I know a lot of Latinos don't want to believe this, but we have a lot of African blood in us, man. And Diego Corrales is Chicano. He's Mexican and Colombian and whatever else and stuff. He's Chicano. He's a Chicano, Mexican American fighter.
Yeah, he grew up about maybe half a mile from where I grew up, man. Yeah. It's crazy.
Definitely, man. He was Chicano, and that was a big win right there against Castillo. Unbelievable 10th round, even though he spit out the mouthpiece a little too much, but that's okay.
You been to boxing, Rex? I think, I don't know if they changed it, but I remember going to boxing. They have him listed as an American fighter. You don't have him like Mexican fighter, a Mexican American. You go to other guys, you'll see like the Mexican American. Diego Corrales is a Mexican American.
Yeah,
plain and simple. And he identified with it. He came out with the Mexican flag when he was in a fight when he fought Floyd Mayweather. He just couldn't get the reception. Like he just couldn't rally up people that were from his descent to back him up, man.
Well, it wasn't just that, bro. It was just there is something to the effect that, and remember when Juan Diaz fought Marquez, and Marquez made a statement in the pre-fight to that fight, and he said Diaz is half Mexican. I'm 100% Mexican. You know what I mean? Like there's just something to that, bro. And a lot of my uncles, God bless them, but they would be like, this is un pocho, and like, it's just
man, I hate that.
And I'm like, dude, you're talking about your kids right there. You're talking about your nephews. That's what you're talking about. You know what I mean? Yep. Like that. It didn't even it never registered with them.
No,
you know what I mean?
No, it doesn't.
Shout out to boxing. I appreciate that, bro.
It doesn't even register. Look at like Cuban fighters. I remember the guy that did the God, what's his name, bro? I'm sorry, I apologize, but I had him on. I follow him on Twitter. He follows me back on Twitter, and he's a white guy that lived in Cuba. He followed Rigondeaux, Erislandi's career, did a documentary, and it was up on Netflix. Okay, God, it's a great Netflix documentary too. It was a while back it came on, and he was, what he's mentioned is something that's really it's just so interesting when he said that the reason why the Cubans don't get the support of like light-skinned Cubans in here in the States is because the darker Cubans identify with slavery Cubans, so the lighter Cubans don't want to associate with that. The same thing with the Asian culture. You know what I mean? The lighter you are, the more they believe that you're like out of royalty. The darker you are, they know you worked out in the fields. You know what? In raza, bro, it's the same way. It's the same way. Like, look at Canelo. Right away, he's a plot. Oh, he looks güerito. He looks like a white guy, blah, blah, blah. Let's clap. But the darker you are, they're like, you got to work for it, bro.
Yeah, a lot of his fans don't want to have that conversation, man. They just don't.
I mean, bro, this will tell you everything. I remember I was doing a show, if you remember, Chief Funk, a while back, and we're talking about Neri and a potential fight with this is before I got mad at him for missing weight and stuff. You know what I mean? But we're talking about Neri against Inoue, and some smartass comes on the chat and be like, I mean, look at Neri. He's not Mexican.
Yeah, I remember that.
I'm like, are you fucking shitting me, bro? All right. Okay. Like, I mean, come on. You know what I mean? But, hey, at the end of the day, man, there is a lot of, internal problems and issues, of course.
Right.
You know, and it's nationalistic. It's a little bit to do as well. So, man, at the end of the day, you know, I think these Mexican American fighters like Johnny Tapia, like Paulie Ayala from Texas, you know what I mean? They
Yes.
deserve a lot more respect, man. Bobby Chacon should be revered and remembered more than what he is. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? You know,
Yes.
so
Dude, I
that
mean, the guy, check this out. I mean, I had a chance before he passed, and I never posted the interview. And I've talked about this, and the reason I never did is because his speech was so bad, and I just don't have no faith on people on the internet um,
right.
that make fun of him because it's just like there's no way I wouldn't allow that. But here you have a guy that his wife committed suicide, told him don't go back in the ring. And it was against a Limon Bazooka, I believe. I can't remember if it was that fight. And then he's like, I'm going. And then she kills herself. And the way he mourned was by getting in the ring and beating Bazooka.
Limon, no?
Yeah, by beating him, and I'm sitting across from him and I asked him about that. And here's this, he was getting up, dude, and kissing everybody, like woo, 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 and he comes back and I was like, fuck, here I am. I'm gonna be a dick right now, I'm gonna ask him this question. And I asked him about that. Like, how did you like get yourself up for that? And he said, he told me, man, he was like, well, if I wouldn't have done it, like if it would have made her death true of like, like not going out there. So that win for him was to justify to her, because he believed that she went to heaven. Hey, see, I did it, and I did it for us.
Right.
So yeah, he should definitely be considered one of the greatest Mexican American Chicano fighters of all time.
Yeah, one of those fights he had with Bazooka Limon was here in the Memorial Auditorium back in the early '80s. Man, that was a hell of a war, man. That's one you guys should check out. What was still under the quarantine,
Yep.
Most definitely. All right, guys, we've had a great show, man. Hispanics causing panic. Make sure you subscribe to Leave It in the Ring, by the way. Chief Funky, give me some final thoughts really quick.
Man, great show. We had a lot of good things to talk about here, considering there's no boxing, especially Johnny Tapia. That's a hell of a story and very relatable for a lot of us Chicanos, unfortunately. But RIP to him. Jorge Santana as well, one of my favorite guitarists ever. Shout out to the chat, everybody that was here that listened to us and chimed in through the chat. Make sure you guys hit the like button if you haven't already. Make sure you subscribe to Leave It in the Ring, D-Style, and of course myself, and be there tomorrow when we talk a little bit about Owen Hart. D-Style and I will be on my channel. It's G-Funky84 Boxing. And I'm glad to be here, man. Thanks for having me on, D-Style. It's always a pleasure, man.
Absolutely, guys. Make sure you throw a jab at the like button. It's good to see 97 Rough Around, says Retro Boxing and Documentaries. Fun shows at Chicano Prophet. Give us some final thoughts, Dave.
It's good to see that, all us YouTubers are still going at it and talking boxing. Shout out to Blood Boxing. Don't forget to Retro Boxing and Documentaries. Go and subscribe to him. Don't forget to go to G-Funk, man. Subscribe to G-Funk. He's got some good content. Love watching this show and stuff. I still got to figure out how the fuck does G-Funk do the grass, bro? I thought he was going to reveal the secret here on the show, but he's going to hold that back to the next Hispanic Causing Panic. Shout out to Boxing Conversation with Reggie Owens. All the guys that come through D-Style. Hey, D, I got to tell you this really quick, man. I want to thank you, bro, for really helping out my channel again to get back up and going and stuff, man. I think that honestly, the contribute that you've done and helped out and help push it has kind of got it back over there, man. So a big shout out to you, bro, and for you to even tell me to come back over, come on your show and all that. It's much appreciated, bro. Thank you guys very much.
Absolutely, man, and you're more welcome. I'm glad to see some old school YouTubers on here. We still got to do that video with yourself, Blood, and me. Okay.
Yeah.
and maybe some other old school YouTubers or something. You know, some like back flash to the past type of thing. You know what I mean? So we got to.
Where's the body banger? Can we find the body banger? Is he around?
Blood said he's gone and he's never coming back. Yeah, Blood told me.
Oh man, don't tell me Blood put a hit on him.
Yeah, man, but we got to do that show, bro. I'm down to do it. If you want to host it, I'll host it. It doesn't matter to me as long as we do it.
Me, bro. Wherever we go, I'm down.
Absolutely, man. With that said, guys, this is D Style Boxing. And what do we say, Chief Funk?